Sup witches? My name's Casey, and I'm obsessed with YouTube. Okay, so last time on What They Don't Tell You is I talked about Wicca and a little bit about paganism. This time I want to talk about bipolar disorder, and I also want to discuss borderline personality disorder. Now, given bipolar disorder is something that people have heard of, borderline personality disorder is something entirely different. To start off, bipolar disorder is considered a clinical disorder, where borderline personality disorder is considered a mood disorder. Again, just like my last video, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not an expert. I am not a certified psych professional. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm none of these things. The only reason why I feel comfortable discussing this topic or these topics is because I have personal experience with bipolar disorder and with borderline personality disorder, which I'm going to refer to as BPD throughout this video. So in January of 2016, I was diagnosed with bipolar type 2. I was also, at the same time, diagnosed with major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and I mean, it sort of goes without saying because I've talked about it in my previous video that I also had an eating disorder. I saw a psychological professional who prescribed me medication for bipolar disorder and for the depression. Something that most people don't know is that there is bipolar type 1 and bipolar type 2. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and read you exactly what I found on Google. This article is by Healthline, so take it for what it is. This one seems to explain it pretty clearly to me, so I'm gonna share this with you. Alright, so I'm gonna read it verbatim. Bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2. All types of bipolar disorder are characterized by episodes of extreme highs and extreme lows. The highs are known as manic episodes, the lows are known as depressive episodes. The main difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder lies in the severity of the manic episodes caused by each type. The depressive episodes are similar between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder, but with bipolar 1 disorder, the mania is more severe than it is with bipolar disorder type 2. Bipolar type 2 causes something called hypomania, which is essentially a less severe form of mania. Okay, so essentially the way that this makes sense to me is let's think of bipolar disorder on a sort of pendulum, right? The pendulum goes all the way depressive over here and all the way manic over here. Someone who has bipolar type 1 can go from manic all the way over to depressive. So, and then they can go depressive all the way over to manic. So this full spectrum of emotions and these two extremes on either side. But for people with bipolar 2, which is what I have, if we have this pendulum, this side is depressive and this side is manic, what happens is I exist sort of in this space right here. So the furthest I ever go, if this is manic here, the furthest I will ever go is about there. If this is manic behavior, and sometimes they characterize manic behavior by bungee jumping, driving a car 120 miles an hour, like, I've never experienced mania, so I'm not going to try and tell you that I know exactly what it's like, but it's extremely abnormal, high energy behavior, and it's a huge absence of sleep. Like, they cannot sleep for like 4 or 5 days, and they're totally cool and fine, they're not tired at all. Again, if we have mania over here, for bipolar type 2, we're like, this is an okay day, and all of this is depressive, and down here is like suicidal depressive. We exist mostly in this range. Every once in a while, we will sort of slip into what they call hypomanic. And so it's sort of like a slightly elevated mood, like extra happy. It's nothing so extreme as the manic episodes that people with bipolar type 1 experience. My bipolar mood swings are not something that I can control. I do not have emotional coping skills to fix the bipolar mood swings. And the reason is because of the fact that it is physiologically a disorder that I have. I take medication for my bipolar disorder every single day. I take a mood stabilizer, and it absolutely 100% helps. I will say for sure that there's addiction in my family, and I refuse to take a happy pill, essentially. So the agreement that I made with my psych professional was that I will take medication if it doesn't just get me high, because I can't just pop a pill and feel good. Like, that would create an addictive behavior for me, and I refuse to participate in that. I take a medication that has to be in my system for at least 3 weeks before it has any impact at all, and it took me 6 months at least to get to a place where I actually experienced any sort of difference, and it was ever so slight. It wasn't like, I'm happy now and the world is all sunshine and daisies. No, it just took the edge off of the depressive side of my bipolar disorder. Now, I have major depressive disorder, which is a completely separate diagnosis, which essentially means that most people with bipolar disorder experience a lot of depression because they live on that side of the spectrum of emotion. However, for me, my depression is so severe that the bipolar disorder is actually one entity and the depression is a different entity. So not only do I take a medication for the mood stabilization, I also take an antidepressant, and believe me, through trial and error, they are both 100% necessary. I absolutely need my medication to remain stable and comfortable, and I take it as a regimen. With bipolar disorder, structures and routines are really helpful for me. But again, my mood swings, I cannot control them. They come when they like, they go when they like. Most of the time, they're depressive. For my bipolar type 2 specifically, most of my mood swings that come from my bipolar are depressive. They're very uncomfortable, and I cannot make them go away on a whim. There is not some magic thing I can do because it is a chemical imbalance going on inside of my body. So that's a little bit about bipolar type 2. So I'm going to switch over to borderline personality disorder. BPD is a mood disorder, which means for me it is a disorder that was created and originated from the trauma in my childhood, which then essentially took on a life of its own. The result of that trauma manifested itself in BPD. So again, I'm going to pull it up from Google, so I'm telling you exactly what the professionals say. So, BPD is a serious mental illness that centers on the inability to manage emotions effectively. The disorder occurs in the context of relationships. Sometimes all relationships are affected, sometimes only one. It usually begins during adolescence or early adulthood. While some persons with BPD are high functioning in certain settings, their private lives may be in turmoil. Most people who have BPD suffer from problems regulating their emotions and thoughts, impulsive and sometimes reckless behavior, and unstable relationships. Other disorders such as depression, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, substance abuse, and other personality disorders can often exist along with BPD. So, exactly 1 year after I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2, I was then diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And the therapist who diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder diagnosed me the very first time she saw me. Yeah. She asked me why I had come into therapy. I started to explain some of the issues that I was dealing with in my personal life and my professional life. She, in about 20 minutes, said, "Has anyone ever told you about borderline personality disorder?" And I looked at her like she was crazy because I said, "I don't have multiple personalities existing in my body." And she said, No, I know the name sounds very similar to multiple personality disorder, but realistically, in like the 1950s when they discovered BPD, they labeled it super fucked up so that everybody who now has BPD sounds like we have other personalities. No offense to the people who have DID, dissociative identity disorder, which is now what it is called. It used to be multiple personality, now it's dissociative personality. Wait, dissociative identity disorder. Anyways, so I looked at her like she was crazy, and I was like, no, just one of me, and I'm crazy, but whatever, it's just one. And she said, no, it has nothing to do with the number of personalities that you have. You're not like borderline DID, like that's not how it works. It was just labeled really funny, so there's that. For me, the ways in which my BPD affect my life are vast. It cannot be treated with medication. It is a mood disorder, which means that the only real way that I can address my BPD is through therapy and mindfulness and coping skills and a healthy mindset, realistically. There is no cure because it's not a physical disease or disorder. It's not physiological like bipolar disorder, hence the reason why I take psych meds for the bipolar. I do not take medication for the BPD. The BPD mood swings come because of triggers. And unlike the bipolar mood swings, I can feel them coming. It's like something stirring inside of me and things just put me off and I just can't handle it. I will get very irritable and I will get very angry. I will get very sad. I will get insanely anxious. I will go to such incredible extremes. And I'm very high functioning. I'm almost done with my master's degree. I have a great job that inevitably will be a great career. I am independent, I'm intelligent, I'm self-aware, hence the reason why I can sit here right now and talk to you all about my disorders and not be uncomfortable with it because I know who I am. These are just aspects of who I am. My BPD has absolutely enabled me to ruin relationships, to build walls around myself, to push people away, to hate people fervently, to be petty and mean and heinous. It has enabled me to do those things. Whereas other people might want to protect the relationships that they have with their friends and their family. The BPD helps me to not care. It also makes it incredibly difficult to like myself some days. It's even harder to love myself most days. I get incredibly frustrated with the mood swings. I kind of want to punch them in the face. These ones aren't like bipolar. Bipolar, I don't know when they're coming. Bipolar shows up and I have a distinct understanding when I'm having a bipolar mood swing versus a BPD mood swing. Luckily for me, I happen to have two disorders that work on two different levels in my brain and in my body, so I have multiple types of mood swings. Can you see how difficult it is to be around me sometimes? BPD can make it extremely difficult for me to maintain relationships with not only my friends and family, but especially romantic relationships. I am quite the handful, to be honest. I don't mean to be. It's not my intention, especially in the beginning before I was seeing a therapist on a regular basis. BPD was kind of like driving the car of my life, and every once in a while it would just swerve into the median and total the car. Whatever relationship happened to be stuck on that median was gone now. It's incredibly difficult to start a new relationship when you have BPD because you have to navigate things like, well, do I tell you ahead of time before I have my first mood swing and potentially overreact and take it out on you even though I don't mean to? Or do I wait until the first one happens and then after the fact be like, sorry, I'm not actually a psycho? Sidebar, please don't call girls psycho. I cannot tell you how many times I have been driven to sob just because some guy called me a psycho. Yeah. I really struggled for a long time with accepting that I had a list of disorders, and one of my friends, I can't remember who, phrased it to me in a way that made a lot of sense to me, which was, you know, there are fucked up people all over the world who just shrug their shoulders when something gets messed up or they feel like shit and they say, I'm just fucked up. That's how it is. That's just me. And then there are people who go out of their way to seek help and therapy and medication or meditation or God or whatever helps them get through their disorders. These people are labeled. Because of those labels, we seem like we're crazy. We seem like we have all these issues and we're so high maintenance. These things that are true, but it's not that simple. We're all human. Is it more difficult to be around us? Yeah, sometimes. But also part of the borderline personality disorder is that we feel things so incredibly deeply. The love that I have for people romantically and familial is so deep. I would give my life for my mom or my sister or my stepmom. I love people to the depth of my core, and it's just who I am. And the BPD is absolutely a contributing factor to who I am. It makes me more emotional. and maybe a little bit more emotional than most people, but I'm still a great person. I'm still awesome to be around. Luckily enough for me, I have come to a point where, with the BPD especially, I can tell a mood swing is coming. And so if I'm spending time with someone or I'm hanging out with family, I can generally tell them I'm about to have a mood swing. And it's not super pleasant. There isn't some like magic words to say that'll make me all better and happy again, but it's helpful when I surround myself with people who have information and understanding of what BPD is and how it impacts me, and thus how it impacts them. So, yeah, I hope that that has given you some information about bipolar disorder and BPD, which most people haven't heard of. So maybe you got brand new information on BPD that you never had before. Most people also don't know, what they don't tell you is there are multiple versions of bipolar disorder. One last note before I let you go. I used to be guilty of, that I am now hyper aware of. If you're ever like sitting in an office or classroom or wherever, and you overhear somebody go, "Ugh, my God, she's so bipolar," or "Jesus Christ, what is his problem? He's so bipolar." Please understand that we really, really don't appreciate it. It is painful to hear things like that, to hear something that is a disorder you cannot control used as an insult. And it makes you feel small, and it makes you feel crazy, and it makes you feel like shit. And I've done it. I did it for years before I was diagnosed, and then suddenly realized what a fucking asshole I was being by saying that shit. So just a word to the wise. What they don't tell you is, we really don't appreciate that. So I hope this has been helpful and informative in educating you on what they don't tell you about bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. And don't forget, we are the weirdos, mister. Bye, guys.